Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with our little ceremony here. I'd like to welcome everyone to the commencement of the arrival and installation of this wonderful sculpture entitled Sea Song by Ted Egri. I also would like to welcome especially Ted and Janet. We're very happy that you could be here. I'd like to say a few words about Ted to start with. Many of you have known Ted for many, many years. I'm fairly new to Taos, so it was a real thrill for me to learn more about him and see his art over the last couple of years. Ted was born a long time ago in New York, and he ended up in Taos, but along the way he was a painter for the Works Progress Administration. He was an illustrator for the U.S. Navy during World War II. He was a college professor teaching at University of Illinois as well as other schools.
But he was a college professor that dropped out of school in 10th grade.
That makes it even more interesting. Ted came to Taos in 1950. And in 1952 he was one of the original founders of the TAA, or the Taos Association of Artists, which of course, Taos Art Association, thank you, Ron, which, as we all know, later morphed into the Taos Center for the Arts. In commemoration of that, we had recently, a couple of years ago, we had a retrospective of Ted's work in the Stables Gallery that was absolutely wonderful, and we had a lovely conversation with Ted. It was moderated by David Witt, who had been a curator at the Harwood and who wrote that wonderful book, Taos Moderns, in which Ted was a principal figure. Ted started the Taos Living Treasure program, and of course then later on Ted became a living treasure himself. I'm not an art critic, but I'd like to say a few words about Ted's art. Not too long ago, it's been a couple of years now, Jane Farmer, my much better half, and I had the great pleasure to go to Janet and Ted's house to see some of his work. And it's hard to find words that express it appropriately, but we were absolutely blown away by the quality and variety and the scope of Ted's work. We saw bronze sculptures that were like this. You could hold them like jewels in your hand. We saw some representational work from his years in the Navy as an illustrator that was representational but still full of magnetism and emotion. And then we saw a minimalist drawing of the Taos Pueblo on the fragment of a brown paper bag that was absolutely stunning. A lot of those were exhibited, of course, in his retrospective. To me, Ted's work is at once intellectual, there's an intellectual quality to it, it's emotional, and it's impactful just by its sheer beauty, whether it's his representational work or his more abstract work. In his abstract work, you have a sense that he really knew how to draw and then take that to another level into his abstract area. I've been told that when Ted first moved to Taos, or when he moved here, he became very interested in sculpture. And sculpture for him became a means of social commentary. He was concerned about various social issues at the time. And then sometimes his work is more fantastic. He's more on the fantasy side. So it goes from sometimes distressful to sometimes more fantastic. But it's full of emotion and movement. You can't look at Ted's art without reacting in some way. It does something to you, at least it sure does to me. So here we have Sea Song today, which is actually a fountain. It was gifted by one of Ted's collectors in California and moved here at great expense. It's been here a while, but it's actually a fountain called Sea Song, and it's meant to be a fountain, and the water running over the top comes down and resembles the strings of a harp. We're very happy that this sculpture symbolizes Ted's fantasy side rather than his distressful side. I think it's appropriate. I guess today it would be great if we could commemorate this by turning on the water and letting it splash down the fountain, but given the fact that we're in Taos, New Mexico, where we all know about the water shortage, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But I would like to conclude by saying that, Ted, we've been blessed, the world has been blessed with your presence and creativity for over 94 years. In Taos, we've been blessed with your presence here, and the Taos Center for the Arts is blessed today with this gift of this wonderful sculpture entitled Sea Song, and we thank you very much.
Fountain all the time.
Tell that to the mayor.
But for special occasions, it certainly would be nice.
Oh, they can run alcohol.
Well, my
Sure.
gosh,
Let me get a lot of
I
this.
know you with your short hair.
What happened to you?
A hummingbird, I went to save a hummingbird from two cats.
Here was that.
And then I just kind of had a little. It was my psychiatrist. No, thank you.
I don't know where they're going to be.
Would you like a big?
Well, wait, my family very mild conditions for that one.